All right, y'all. It's Crossover Thursday here, Locked on Rams and Locked on Saints. Travis Rogers and Ross Jackson here breaking down this big matchup between the Los Angeles Rams traveling to the Big Easy to take on the New Orleans Saints this weekend. Now we're going to dive into the three things that each of these teams needs to do to get a win. Of course, our Crossover Thursdays are always presented by PrizePicks. Download the PrizePicks app and use the promo code LOCKEDONNFL to win $50 instantly when you place your first $5 lineup. So, Travis, when it comes down to the things that the Rams need to do to get a win here in New Orleans, what do you think the game kind of starts off with for them? Like, what do they need to do to get a win?
This is the worst answer you're ever going to hear all season long. Here we are in week 13, and it's the dumbest, most obvious answer. What are the three things we talk about? Don't turn it over, block, and don't miss kicks.
I like the block edition.
I mean, it's just like this is not super complicated.
Right.
Kyren Williams has fumbled 5 times in the last 7 games. That can't continue.
That's big.
That's crazy. You know, that game against the Eagles got off to a weird start because he put it on the ground on their first series. They don't block anybody up front. That Matthew Stafford has very little time. And Josh Carty, who they spent a draft pick on and got off to a good start. I think Rams fans were pretty pleased. I know the everydayers were listening to Doug and I talk about him, the Carty party that was kind of being thrown at the early part of the season. And he was good. And it felt like he had some range out to maybe the low 50s that you felt pretty good. Well, that's not true anymore. He's missing more than he's making. So, call me a football genius. Don't turn it over, block, and make kicks. It's a pretty good formula to win a game.
It's got to be a big part of it, right? I mean, gosh, that's about it. That's about all it takes. All right, everybody, thank you very much for tuning in. Look, and I think the Saints kind of path to winning is pretty simple as well. They got to be able to run the ball effectively. They've got to be able to get pressure on the opposing quarterback while keeping their quarterback clean, and they have to continue to win in the special teams battle. I think special teams. I'm glad that you brought up kicking. I think special teams is going to be big in this game. I don't know if you've seen. But there's some voodoo going on in the Superdome right now, Travis. There's 2 weeks ago, Younghoe Koo missed 3 kicks in the Superdome for the first time in his career. First time he ever missed 3 kicks in a game. And then last week, Dustin Hopkins missed another 3 kicks. 2 of them on the same drive, because one of them he missed the field goal. It got called for defensive holding on a field goal, which I'll never understand. First time I've ever seen that. But yeah, right. So then they got another couple of plays at the end of the half. And then in the greatest ball don't lie movement, Dustin Hopkins lines up for a shorter kick and misses the opposite direction. So it's been insane here. Meanwhile, Blake Grupe, the New Orleans Saints kicker, has been great here as of late. Maybe I shouldn't have said that out loud, but I think we've all said it anyway. But whatever special teams coordinator now turned interim head coach Darren Rizzi is doing, whatever gree he buried somewhere on the Superdome grounds, it's working against opposing kickers.
Yeah, the Rams are hanging on by the skin of their teeth with their special teams, because look, they brought back Chase Blackburn as their special teams coach, and I think everybody wanted say what now that he came back for another year, because they had the worst special teams in football last year. And you rarely does worst special teams in football and playoff team go hand in hand, and somehow some way they still made the playoffs despite having some really dreadful special teams performances. They kind of ran it back. They changed out some personnel. It's better, but it's not a lot better. So maybe that voodoo that you're talking about, that the Rams are kicking so squirrely right now, maybe it'll drive it through the uprights, because everybody's talking, they got to make these goalposts a little closer. It's getting too easy for these guys. Like, watch a Rams game. No, it's not. It's not.
Yeah,
it's not easier for them.
I love that from the moment that suggestion became a hotly debated conversation, NFL kickers just completely did themselves in, have done themselves in week over week. Yeah, right. Yeah. They said, watch this. You think we need these skinnier? Give me a second. And they have been awful so far throughout the season, almost bad as the officiating. The other things that I think that we won't go there. It's all right. Wait. I will say this. This real quick. There's no reason that Nick Sirianni should have been able to change his mind after accepting that penalty. I've never seen that before.
I assumed, and apparently it isn't, I assumed there was a rule that once I say I want to do A, I don't get a look at the other guy's cards and then say, I changed my mind, I'd like to do B. I've never seen that happen. And
that was wild.
And again, that's not why the Rams lost the game. They lost the game because Saquon Barkley is superhuman. But
I mean, 302 total yards. Like, what are you going to do?
Yeah, that was bizarre.
Yeah. For anybody that maybe that didn't see it, there was I think it was a 3rd and 3 that ended up, there was a holding penalty on an incomplete pass, if I recall correctly.
Yes.
And Nick Sirianni declined the holding penalty, saw Sean McVay send the Rams offense back out to go for it on 4th and 3, and then said, never mind. And then accepted the penalty, and they allowed him to accept the penalty.
That's exactly right. And there's one other wrinkle to this that I feel necessary, because I've been thinking about it for days, and I can't quite come up with it. Why would he have thought they were going to kick it the first time? They were down 13 points. It's late in the fourth quarter. Like, what did you think they were going to do? That's the part that's like, and look, Eagles are good. Them and the Lions have kind of separated from the pack. But if I were an Eagles fan and saw that, I'm going, what is going through that dude's head? Like, there's no scenario in the world where the Rams were going to kick that field goal.
Nick Sirianni is presently the worst NFL coach of a winning team right now. I have no doubt in my mind. Anyway, sorry. This is not an Eagles podcast. If you want that, you can go check out Gino and Louie over at Locked On Eagles. They've got you taken care of. Yeah. Travis and I are we're just bonkers about football. But I think the other thing here is that, like, the Saints have got to run the football well, and I'm sure that goes just as important for the Los Angeles Rams as well. The Saints have been a weak run defense. The Rams have allowed over 151 rushing yards per game in away games, and are coming off of the game where Saquon Barkley just went nuts in SoFi and everything. So the Saints have to be able to try to take advantage of that as well. I do want to mention that, of course, is a huge part of this game, I'm sure, for both sides.
Yeah, for sure. I've been, and maybe if the Rams lose this game to the Saints, we'll get to see something that I've been calling for I don't want to say a few weeks, maybe a few months. Why do we draft Blake Corum in the 3rd round, never to use him? He really hasn't played much at all. Kyren Williams keeps fumbling. The Rams, it's not like Kyren Williams is a fumbler who also will rip off a bunch of 20 and 30-yard runs. That's not the sort of back he is. He's kind of a grinded out sort of guy. And I don't think he's a bad player, but he's not an explosive player. Let's take a look at the other guy. Maybe it's the same and without the fumbles, and that would feel, I get it. There's pass pro and Matthew Stafford is all of those things, but the clock on Blake Corum has been ticking for a minute for me. I'd really like to see him play more.
Yeah, absolutely. He had a great acceleration on one of the runs that I saw from him on Sunday night up against the Eagles and things like that.
That was his only one.
I was like, why don't they give him the ball to this guy a little bit more?
They haven't all
see the juice. You can see the juice.
They haven't used it.
We'll see. We'll see if maybe he gets involved here up against New Orleans. And of course, the Saints themselves over on their side will have Alvin Kamara, of course, to be able to lean on as well, who is on track for his first 1,000-yard rushing season, which feels so weird to say. He's never had one. Isn't that crazy?
I've never gotten that big wrong. Wrong.
Yeah. Never had a 1,000-yard rushing season. But staring down at it now here in year, almost 7-8 at this point. So good for him. Good for him, because he deserves it.